watching Seahawks Today, powered by Chat Sports. I am your fearless leader, Tyler Jones, here with you. Thanks for joining us. It is grade check time. I'll be honest, I wasn't that great of a student. I wasn't bad, just kind of somewhere in between. But now the student becomes the teacher. I get to hand out grades for the entire offseason for your Seattle Seahawks. We'll talk everything from free agent signings, free agent losses, the draft, UDFAs. Oh, and the Seahawks have a brand new coaching staff as well. How did John Schneider and company do? We'll give grades out for every one of them coming up in just a moment. You want to be an A-plus Seahawks fan? There's only one way to do it. That's by subscribing to Seattle Seahawks Today. The latest happenings in your favorite team all off-season long. Daily news and rumors. Live shows every Wednesday. Watch parties during the season. Stay up to date on your favorite team. Join the family now. Help us reach our next milestone of 52.5 thousand subscribers. Subscribe now for free, youtube.com/SeahawksTV. Let's roll through these signings for the Seahawks. Here are the newest members of your Seattle Seahawks. Pharaoh Brown at the tight end position. Nick Harris at the center/fullback spot, expected to be more of a backup center. Rayshawn Jenkins comes over from the Jags at the safety spot. He's expected to be a day one starter. George Fant at offensive tackle. The Seahawks are looking to use him as a swing tackle, the primary backup for Abraham Lucas and Charles Cross. Sam Howell was acquired via trade. He will back up Geno Smith, and all eyes will be on him to see exactly if he gets his chance to start for the Seahawks at some point this year. Tyrel Dodson will be your green dot linebacker, the signal caller, leading the way there, and he'll be joined alongside Jerome Baker, replacing the likes of Jordan Brooks and Bobby Wagner at those two positions. Kayvon Wallace at the corner and safety spot. Sounds like he's more likely to be a safety for Seattle, but has the versatility to do both. The wide receiver position, Shenault comes over from the Panthers. He's expected to compete for the number 4 and 5 receiver roles for the Seahawks. Johnathan Hankins will be one of the primary rotational defensive linemen that come over from the Dallas Cowboys, where he played under new Seahawks defensive coordinator AD, so there's some familiarity there. And then Tremayne Anchrum at the offensive tackle spot also comes aboard as well, and we'll see if he ends up making the roster or not. Here's the free agents that were retained by Seattle that got new deals and are sticking around. Noah Fant gets a multi-year deal. He is, without question, the Seahawks' number one tight end, not sharing that role with Will Dissly anymore. Leonard Williams got a massive extension. The Seahawks traded for him at the trade deadline last year, and now he's paid like the money that he deserves and was the best player on the Seahawks defense for the second half of last year. Mike Jackson at the corner spot. He is back. He's restructured his deal, taking a pay cut, likely to stick around. Darrell Taylor is back, and he's expected to be a rotational edge rusher as a pass rushing specialist. Brady Russell also back as well at the tight end position. We'll see for how long he is back. McClendon Curtis also back as well, as is John Radigan. He'll be competing for one of those linebacker spots. And then J.O. also is back at the outside linebacker position. Raekwon O'Neal, Miles Adams, and Artie Burns also retained by Seattle as well. Here's the losses. Here's who the players that the Seahawks ended up losing in free agency. Bobby Wagner went on to the Washington Commanders. It sounded like that Mike Macdonald didn't really feel like Bobby was the right fit for what the Seahawks wanted to do defensively in his scheme. Jordan Brooks, same thing. He goes to the Miami Dolphins. A trade, if you will, with Jerome Baker coming over from Miami. Will Dissly, he's off to the LA Chargers. Meanwhile, Damian Lewis is off to Carolina. Colby Parkinson off to the LA Rams in a very big tight end room there. They got plenty of options there in Los Angeles. DJ Dallas is in Arizona now, staying within the division. Drew Lock will get the chance to compete for the starting job with the New York Giants there with Daniel Jones. Mario Edwards is in Houston now. And Evan Brown, after 1 year with Seattle. He is in Arizona. So all in all, how did the Seahawks do with what they lost and what they gained? I think it was a B. That's the grade I would give the Seahawks for how they managed free agency with what they were able to gain and what they lost here. I think it's a B. You don't have that splash signing, if you will. But even with all you lost, it doesn't feel like you hurt that bad necessarily. I can live with how the free agency period went. I give it a B. I think that's a fair grade for free agency for the Seahawks. I'll give my overall grade at the end of today's show, but want to hear from you guys. How would you grade the Seahawks offseason as a whole? A, B, C, D, or F? Way in the comment section. Let us know what you think. Now, let's go to the draft picks for the Seattle Seahawks. Byron Murphy in the first round at 16 overall, a great pick by Seattle. And then Christian Haynes, my personal favorite pick. Incredible value for him to be available at 81. We heard rumblings the Seahawks tried to trade up for him. Instead, he fell right in their laps. He's expected to compete for the starting right guard spot right away. Therese Knight, the linebacker from UTEP, led the nation in solo tackles. He's a bit of a project, if you will, but there's a lot of optimism. Certainly needs to improve when it comes to coverage. A.J. Bardner was selected a couple picks later out of the University of Michigan, more of a blocking tight end, while the Seahawks were very familiar with War Eagle now, as they drafted not one, but two corners from Auburn. Nehemiah Pritchett at 136. We'll get the other here in just a second. At 179, they selected Satua Leimea, the offensive tackle from Utah, and he might be playing some guard. We'll see. There's some flexibility potentially there. DJ James was the other corner selected out of Auburn, and by most statistics, he actually had a better season last year than Pritchett did. And then the Seahawks finished out the draft with Mike Jarrell, the offensive tackle from Findlay University, a Division II school. So how did the Seahawks do in the draft? My grade for the Seahawks draft, I go with an A. I know that they reached a bit on some of their later picks, but I view this as a weighted grade. You did so good with the first two picks that I can give the benefit of the doubt to John Schneider and company for reaching on some of the later picks. I'll go with an A for how they did with the draft. Who was your favorite Seattle Seahawks draft pick? Of the guys that we listed there, let us know in the comments section who your very favorite was for 2024. Today's show is sponsored by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the place to go for daily fantasy made easy. Here's how it works. Choose two or more players on any given category. Get the choice of more or less, whether you're talking fantasy points, maybe it's rebounds in basketball, maybe it's home runs in baseball, goals in hockey, all sorts of different categories to choose from. You can mix and match different leagues. Here's a look at the NBA playoffs, going with Donovan Mitchell to have more than 112.5 points in their first four playoff games against Boston. I got Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, SGA, to have more than 23 assists in the first four games against Dallas. And Chet Holmgren played his college ball at Gonzaga. I got him to have more than 37 rebounds in the first four games against the Dallas Mavericks. If we put $20 down, this hits, turns into $100 on Prize Picks. Get $100 on your first deposit at prizepicks.com/CLNS. Promo code CLNS. The link is in the comments and the description of today's video. All right, let's go to the UDFA signings now for the Seahawks. Sonny Anderson, the linebacker position from Grambling. Nelson Caesar, edge rusher from Houston. He's the guy that should have been drafted. Good value. I think he's got a shot to make the team. The one quarterback the Seahawks brought in, Chevin Cordero. He is QB3 at the moment, the Mountain West Conference Player of the Year last season. Garrett Greenfield, offensive tackle from South Dakota. Hayden Hatton, the wide receiver from Idaho, also included. George Holani, running back from Boise State. He's got the edge to be the number 4 running back to make the roster right now. Carlton Johnson, corner from Fresno. DeVere Levinston, defensive end from SMU. Kobe Lewis, running back from FAU. Mike Novinsky, center from the University of Kansas. I know I'm a Jayhawk, but I'm very optimistic about Mike Novinsky. I think he's got a chance to surprise some people. I would expect at the very least for him to be a practice squad player to watch out for. Ro Torrance, corner from Arizona State. Jack Westover, tight end from Washington. He's the second best receiving tight end on the Seahawks roster right now. I think he's got a shot to make the final roster when it's all said and done. D. Williams, wide receiver from Tennessee, also included on the list. Rayshawn Williams, the second linebacker from Louisiana Tech. Tremayne Williams, running back from North Dakota State. And Easton Gibbs, linebacker from Wyoming. All in all, I think you're looking at realistically about 2 or 3, maybe 4 players that have a chance to make the 53-man roster. I'll give that a B+. I think it's a good class of undrafted free agents, but maybe not elite. There were some teams that did better in who they brought in UDFAs than the Seattle Seahawks did. I mean, I looked just down the road to the LA Rams, and they got my guy Drake Stoops. I would have loved to have Drake Stoops in Seattle. Why didn't they give him a call? So there was a couple players that I would have liked to see. You can't get everybody, obviously, but I'll go with a B+ there for the Seahawks for the UDFA grades. Who's a player that's a UDFA that you expect to make the Seahawks 53-man roster? Weigh in the comment section. Give me a name that comes to mind that you think has a shot to make it when the season begins. The brand new coaching staff for your Seattle Seahawks. Mike Macdonald is the new head coach coming over from the Baltimore Ravens, where he was defensive coordinator. His first hire was Leslie Frazier, the former Vikings head coach. He will be kind of the adult in the room, if you will, for Mike Macdonald to feed off of as the assistant head coach. Ryan Grubb is the Seahawks OC, coming over from the Washington Huskies, had the nation's best offense in all of college football, was in Tuscaloosa for about 2 weeks before he came back to Seattle to take over as OC. He brought Scott Huff with him as his offensive line coach. They hired Charles London to be the quarterback coach. He's been QB coach for a number of places in the NFL, Tennessee and Atlanta, just to name a few. Kennedy Polamalu, that name should sound familiar to you. Yes, he is related to the former Steelers legend Troy Polamalu, was most recently the running back coach for the Las Vegas Raiders, and he's worked with some great running backs over the years. Frisman Jackson will be the wide receivers coach, while Mack Brown, not that Mack Brown, but a different Mack Brown, will be the tight ends coach. Jake Peetz is the passing game coordinator, while AD, as he likes to be called, will be the defensive coordinator coming over from the Dallas Cowboys, although it'll be Mike Macdonald calling the shots on defense and running his scheme, not running what AD ran with Dan Quinn in Dallas. Jay Harbaugh, he leaves his dad, who obviously was Jim Harbaugh, the Michigan head coach, does not follow him to the LA Chargers, where he could have been special teams coordinator there. Instead, comes to Seattle to make a name for himself. He was the best special teams coordinator in all of college football last year. Devin Fitzsimmons will be a special teams assistant. Carl Scott stays on staff as the senior defensive assistant for Seattle. He's one of the few that was retained. Kirk Olivadotti comes over from the Green Bay Packers. They had an awful defense last year. I'm a little skeptical on that hire. Josh Bynes, played in the NFL not too long ago, under Mike Macdonald, might I add, comes over from the Baltimore Ravens. He'll be assistant linebackers coach. Jeff Howard, defensive backs coach. Nick Perry, defensive assistant, while Justin Hines will be the defensive line coach. Rob Price will be a defensive intern. Yes, we're even mentioning the interns here, folks. Shout out to the interns. Pay your interns, people. Brendan Nugent will be assistant offensive line coach, while Quinshawn Odom will be an offensive assistant and offensive quality control coach. Chris Partridge, outside linebackers coach, and Tyson Prince, the Seahawks assistant wide receivers coach. So, there you have it. That is the entire coaching staff for Seattle. There's a couple of hires that were questionable, but the good far outweighs the bad on this coaching staff. I thought Mike Macdonald and John Schneider did a terrific job for the most part. Ryan Grubb, Jay Harbaugh, AD, this is going to be a very well-coached team, and I think that they're going to get the most out of this Seahawks team, which was the big knock on Pete Carroll last year, was that team underachieved. That won't be the case this year. This coaching staff gets an A from me. Who was your favorite Seahawks coaching hire this cycle? Weigh in the comments section. Give us a name that comes to mind. My overall grade for the Seahawks, I'm going A- here. Knocked it out of the park with the coaching staff. Free agency was good, but not great. The draft was really good as well. Overall, I come away from this offseason feeling very optimistic. Much better about this Seahawks team right now than what they were in 2023. I'll go A-. How would you grade the Seahawks offseason? A, B, C, D, or F? Weigh in the comment section. Let us know what you think. Subscribe now to Seahawks Today for continuing offseason coverage here on the channel, youtube.com/Seahawks TV. I'm Tyler Jones. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.